Hello and a warm welcome to this special broadcast where the Federal, its sister concern, Puthiyathalaimurai and Apt Research Group have conducted an All India pre-poll survey just ahead of the elections. Now, this survey was conducted across 19 states to gauge the pulse of the nation. And this poll was conducted between December 2023 and January 2024. Of course, for the survey, there were four zones. It was divided into four zones: north, south, east, and west. And some very interesting findings have come out, and we'll share all of that. But let's take a look at a short video which will give you an idea as to what kind of methodology was adopted for this All India survey. So you are watching our All India pre-poll survey conducted by the Federal, Puthiyathalaimurai and Apt Research Group. Now, of course, let's go straight away into the questions of the day, the questions we are going to deal in today's episode. The first question, if I may ask my colleague to play it on the screen for the viewers, that do you approve of the caste census advocated by opposition parties, which may bring backward castes and the most backward castes to the forefront of policy making? I'm repeating this question for the viewers. Do you approve of the caste census advocated by opposition parties, which may bring the backward castes and the MBCs to the forefront of policy making? Now, before we go into the answers, let me introduce all our panelists today. We have S. Srinivasan, who's the editor-in-chief of the Federal and also the head of the Puthiyathalaimurai Group. So thank you so much for joining. We have Raghuram T, who is the president of the Apt Research Group. Thank you, Raghuram, so much. And we have our senior editor, Puneet Nicholas Yadav from the Federal. Thank you, Puneet, so much for joining. And going to the question, now let me get you the findings of this first question, which asks that do you approve of the caste census advocated by the opposition parties? Now, from north to south to east and west, and of course, then the national picture, 36.90% of the respondents said yes, that they need a caste system. Now, respondents who backed the caste census are in the east, that is 42.64%, and also in the west, 39.70%. Now, the maximum number of people who said no to the caste census, which is again very important, 62.83%. That's a huge number, which says that they don't want a caste census. And they are the people from the south. Now, let me go straight to Raghuram. Raghuram, the very fact that most of the people in the south, and this is a huge number, 62.83% of the people saying that they do not want a caste census, what does it really indicate? And will it have any bearing on the voting pattern? This particular question which we have asked on the caste census, because it has become into a big political issue as well. So how does it play out in the South, and how does it play out in the North as well?
This caste census issue came into focus of the caste census done in Bihar. Going by the findings of the that census, national attention was turned towards it, and it was anticipated that caste census will become a major issue in the current in the run up to the current forthcoming Lok Sabha elections. But it so happened that the opposition did not focus much about the caste census in the past few months. So, as a result of which, I think much of the potential capability of this issue has been lost, and Mr. Nitish itself is not with the India Alliance now. Number one. And number two, in the South, there is a very effective caste reservation system in place for the backward classes. So it's my guess that people who are already enjoying the benefits of reservation do not want any disruption to come. So they're very happy with what is there now. And third and most important thing is that any issue comes to prominence in the electoral fray when political parties educate the voters about it. So there was no opportunity for the voters to know much about what the intricacies of the caste census are. So it started with a lot of hope and expectation, but then just now the opposition is talking about it, and I think it's a little bit too late because it looks like a good proportion of the voters have already made up their mind. It will change even on the day of before the day of voting too, but absence of sufficient propaganda is also one of the reasons that the backing to the caste census may not be what it should have been, but it is justified. The data is justified as far as South is concerned. We have, especially in Tamil Nadu, a good amount of reservation is there, and people are happy about it.
Right. Srinivas, I'll come to you now with this figure that the maximum number of people who've backed the caste census are in the East, that is 42.64%, and also in the West, which is about 39.70%. Now, this entire narrative on caste census, it actually began with the India bloc and Nitish Kumar almost championing the cause in Bihar. But the survey which says that, the maximum people who are backing this caste census are in the East. So, but we didn't hear too much from the leaders of the East or, say, for the West talking so much about it. So, did the political parties pick that pulse in the eastern part of the country and also in the western part of the country?
Yeah, like Raghuram was saying that the thing started very well. India Alliance had a good opportunity, which they picked it up. In fact, if you recall, before the assembly election in three states, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, and MP, Congress even announced that if they win the election, they will actually order surveys there. And later, even Rahul Gandhi, during his travel, has been constantly saying that we should raise this issue. But like you said, it has drawn different reaction from different regions. Correctly, in the south, the reason is it's already well implemented. B, it's also the fact that even party like CPM and BJP are now forced to acknowledge the fact that reservation is a fact of life, and caste census, they perceive that they can't move away from that. Even they have to go with it. But it's not being openly being said by some parties, but they all want that. Certainly, they know that they have to do that. The very fact that Bihar, what it showed, the survey, that OBCs and EBCs together, about 63%. It's a major chunk. So it's also possible that in some places where there are well-entrenched parties, with backward support, may not want this to be disturbed for the moment because they don't want this structure to be disturbed, because in some places it even showed that the forwards, besides the dominant backward parties, even the forward caste, the number what it was perceived is much less. So therefore the dynamics is moving in different directions, and therefore I feel that you see different kinds of reactions to this. But one thing I feel that why majority of a large number of people, 62% are saying that look, they don't want such a thing. I mean, that's quite interesting. Here, I would be interested in knowing whether there is a rural-urban kind of a divide, whether people from urban areas saying no to caste, though they may themselves be, some of them may be benefited, but then they seem to be saying that, whereas rural areas, they seem to embrace this aspect more. So this I really don't know. Maybe Raghuram could throw a light on that, but that's another interesting question for me. The other thing is what should be the reaction of the Dalit population? In some places, it could be perceived that Dalits might they could get squeezed in the overall thing, though they have under constitution their reservation is assured 18%, which is there. But it's that's another factor, that whether they already feeling squeezed and they would worry that okay, this may squeeze them further. But certainly there is enthusiasm amongst EBCs, an extremely backward caste. So I think this is a very interesting question. We have thrown a very interesting data. We'll see how it pans out in the election. Like he said, Raghuram saying, I kind of agree with him that the kind of momentum one expected for converting this political idea in electorally, we are not seeing that kind of momentum right now.
Right. So, Puneet, if I may come to you, what according to you is the biggest takeaway from each region, whether it is East, West, North, or South? South, of course, is very clear, doesn't want a disruption. They're very happy with whatever they have. But what about the other regions? What does it really show as far as the political narrative and the way it has been built around the caste census?
Nilu, I have 3 points. The 3 basic planks in which, through which, the prism through which I see this response. I agree with Mr. Raghuram to some extent on the aspect that there was not enough time for the opposition to create an awareness on what exactly is it that the caste census is going to achieve, or in what manner is the caste census going to help people or not help people. In fact, during the assembly elections, the 5 assembly elections in November, I remember doing a story for the Federal after traveling in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, where it was a ground report where there were a lot of people who I spoke to who said that they agree with the concept of a caste census. They would look forward to the concept to a caste census or a caste survey happening. But the problem or their complaint was that barring, and I mean, these were both states which had bipolar elections, so you didn't really have the mandal parties as such contesting. It was basically a BJP versus Congress fight. And the respondents, the people I spoke to would invariably say that fine, Rahul Gandhi comes and announces a caste census, but on the ground, nobody else from the Congress was talking about it, and that was very evident in the campaign. Barring an odd hoarding of Bhupesh Baghel or Kamal Nath somewhere, saying we'll implement a caste survey when we come to power. When you actually saw the assembly-wise campaign, the grassroots campaign of the parties, nobody spoke about caste census. So you'd have this kind of fly-by-night announcement by Rahul or Mr. Kharge saying that we'll do a caste census and it's going to be good for you. And then nobody to actually explain to the voters what exactly this is. So that's the first point, the lack of awareness. The second aspect, which I would be rather interested in finding out, is so within this sample of the respondents, uh, if we had an idea of what percentage of the respondents belonged to the backward castes, the OBCs, the MBCs, the Dalits, or the tribals, and what percentage belonged to the forward classes, that potentially could have given us a slightly clearer picture of why this kind of a very overwhelming no to a caste census and a very lukewarm yes to it has come out in the responses. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is that uh, this poll from was conducted, as we've said, in December and in January. Now, this 3rd of December, you had the assembly poll results come out. And if you recall, the moment the assembly poll results came out, you had the entire machinery of the BJP, whether on social media or on news platforms, or even in your general Panwadi conversations, saying how the people have rejected caste census. There's this whole narrative that was built that caste census is zero. Caste census is not, is not going to win votes. See how the Congress, how poorly the Congress has performed, etc., etc. And there was a lot of noise throughout December on that. Now, I don't know whether a lot of that noise has influenced popular opinion, as the poll suggests that it may have. I don't know. But these are factors that do influence a response. So when you hear a lot of people on the street saying that, oh, it's been rejected in toto, and we know how good the BJP's system is in terms of spreading their version of a narrative, and we know what their position on caste census is. So whether that has influenced some responses, I don't know. What I see, particularly the last brief point, is the highest number of responses in favor of a caste census come from East. Now, which includes Bihar among the clusters that the survey has made, where caste census has actually happened. And so there is some awareness about it. Now, I don't know the proportion of the respondents from Bihar to the other states in that cluster. But then whether that has been instrumental in pushing up the figures of favorable for a caste census in the East cluster would be an interesting thing to look at.
But one thing which I want to just ask a brief point, and then I'll go to the next question. Raghuram, that given the fact that in East, there are about 42.64% of the people who are in favor of the caste census. In the West, it is 39.70%. And if I am to assume that the entire political battle of 2024 will be BJP versus India Bloc, or whatever little India Bloc we see as of now, if the India Bloc or if the opposition parties raise the caste census issue, and particularly in East and West, given the fact that there are a lot of takers for this caste census over there, can it really swing the prospects either ways, whether it is BJP or the opposition?
2 points. As far as the response from the zones to the yes option, I would group them into 2 groups: North, East, and West in one group, and the South in another group, because the variation between North, East, and West are marginal. So I wouldn't want to read much into it. There is a variation between the South and the other 3 zones. And for that, I've already explained that South, they're happy with the reservation, so they're happy with what is there. If even if the opposition alliance is able to shift focus on this issue in any part of the country, definitely it may gain traction. But my feeling is their approach to the whole thing has been wrong, because when you go try sells to people something like a Manrega, I say I'll give you 100 days of work and you get X amount of payment. It connects with the voters easily. Caste census, what it means, what will be the outcome of it for the common man. That'll take a lot of explaining to do, and then I fear there's no time for that. They had a good concept, but they have lost a lot of time in taking it to the common people. No, so even if they get their act together, I guess they need at least 12 to 16 weeks to reach the common man, and elections are very close now.
Right.
No?
Okay, so now let's move on to the next question of this pre-poll survey which we are putting out. The center is considering implementing the One Nation, One Election proposal to conduct Lok Sabha and all state assembly elections simultaneously and every 5 years. Do you approve of this move? That the center is considering implementing the One Nation, One Election proposal to conduct. Now, the findings are very interesting. The maximum support for the One Nation, One Election proposal came from the West with a backing of 70.79%. That's a phenomenal number. Then the second best backing of 62.67% was from the East. 61.23% of the voters in the North expressed their backing to this proposal, and only 50.57% of the respondents in the South backed this proposal. Okay, so let me start with Raghuram again. That Raghuram, and let's start with the third most interesting finding on South, and that is 50.57% of the people in the South have backed this proposal, which is almost like the least. So any particular reason for that? Is it just because that the elections in most of the southern states have just happened? Is it because of that? What would you really, how would you really see the responses given by the people or the voters here?
Yeah, true. That's what it is, because 3 of the 5 states just had their elections a while ago, and people do not know what amount of disruption will it bring into the governments that are already in place. And for some states, they just voted for them a few months back. So that is the reason for the low response there. And West is a little away from the other zones. Nearly 71% of the respondents are for it, and North and East are in the same league. So on the whole, I think the Indian voter wants elections to be clubbed together. But how they are to be clubbed, I think the government has to decide the days to come already. Former President Kovind-led panel is at it. So they will, but looks like one nation, one election will be a reality, at least within the next couple of years.
Right. So this entire narrative around the One Nation, One Election, Shri sir, which means that what Modi is saying is correct, and probably it will become a reality. I mean, it's just a matter of a few months or maybe maximum a year or so.
Yeah, if certainly if this government is voted to power for a third time, it would be possibly there are good possibility that it will be implemented, because it's one of the agendas, one of the points on the agenda, top on the agenda. But before we jump to that, let's look at the current situation, the way you have, the results, what they are showing. One reason I feel is why so many people are saying yes to this. And even in South, where federalism is an issue which politicians here, Dravidian parties keep talking about day in and out. Even here, there's been a good support for this. One thing I would feel is the publicity, or the kind of publicity or the noise which the ruling party is able to create on this issue has been very effective. I think it has reached, the communication has reached the people that there is an advantage, because they seem to be completely focusing on the fact that there is a cost advantage. There's a lot of money which would be saved if you go for one poll, one nation, one poll. According to CII, their estimates are that yearly, I mean, if these elections are held, you can actually save 12,000 crores. So the assent has been largely on the fact that there will be a lot of saving. But I think people like those who oppose it or others have not been able to convey what are the other issues which may, what are the things which may impinge upon if such a decision is taken. So that there has not been much of a discussion on those issues because this cost issue has been an overwhelming one, and most people seem to agree to this. That yeah, of course, the cost should be reduced. Why so many elections? Why repeated elections? The other thing is, besides the other issues which one may have to consider is if these such elections do take place, there has been no discussion on issues like this. That right now, what happens is when the elections are held in stages and elections are held separately, you don't need so much of armed for say paramilitary and other forces to even 7 phase elections are held. That's okay. You can phase out your security forces. According to one estimate, if there are 800 companies right now, which means multiply by 135, so many people are deployed for one election, one may need 3,000 to 3,500 companies. That's the order of people just required to do election all over nation at one go. Besides, one has to also, there have been a lot of, there's no clarification, a lot of other issues, whether, though there's a COVID committee set up on that, whether, how these elections are going to be held, whether it will be 3-tier, 4-tier, what kind of arrangements are going to be made. There are lot of clarification which still need to be given by the government. But again, the other issue is like I was saying, the federal issues that frequent elections constantly test the political party in power. But what seems to have happened is, like I was saying earlier, the communication from the government that it's good for the nation if there is one nation, one poll happens, seem to be the dominating theme right now, and that's why so many people have voted.
Does it mean that, this narrative which is brought out by the opposition parties, especially the India bloc, when they say that it will be an attack on the federal structure, all the people, there won't be many takers for what the opposition is really saying? Because if you have a huge chunk of 70.79% people who are backing the idea of one nation, one election, and as what Srini sir has also said, that effectively BJP has communicated and this message has reached well. So then again, opposition loses out on that front. Don't you think so?
Nilo, I don't see this as the opposition losing out or the government or the ruling party, winning a point here. The thing here is, I see this as the power of propaganda. There has been a considerable amount of propaganda around the idea of one nation, one poll, without anybody actually explaining to the voter how this is going to happen, how this is going to be implemented, the rights that it's going to impinge upon, the kind of kamikaze effect it's going to have on democracy and the federal structure. None of that has been explained. But the propaganda succeeds because it sounds like a very good concept and it has been sold as a very good concept. Intrinsic to the coinage of one nation, one election is a certain sense of for nationalism, of national unity, and that's something that the BJP is very clever at. So you'll see this idea of oneness coming in a lot, having a lot of other manifestations in the BJP's rhetoric. Akhand Bharat is oneness. One nation, one poll is oneness. Ek Desh, Ek Samvidhan, which they use to abrogate Article 370, one country and one constitution. Same concept, and these are easy coinages. You don't have to explain them to the voter. Whereas for the opposition or for those who resist these ideas, it becomes difficult to actually explain and it becomes incumbent on them to explain that, okay, if it is not a good idea, why is it not a good idea? Because the BJP, all it needs to do is that, you'll have elections in one go, and then you won't have to spend a lot of money on it and all of that, and get away with it. It's not incumbent on the BJP to explain to the voter how this is actually going to pan out. So that's one thing. And I would like to, so to put it into perspective, see, caste census. We just discussed the response to the caste census thing. That's a difficult thing to explain compared to one nation, one election.
That's true.
Or, like, for instance, in our discussion on this survey yesterday, there was a certain, if my memory serves right, I believe about 31% respondents to one particular question said, international prestige of India has gone up under Modi. Now,
Yes.
This is the power of propaganda. You can go into great detail of dissecting whether or not that international prestige has actually gone up. But then the impression is that it has.
Yeah. That's
okay, so I see it more as the power of propaganda.
Okay. So
and there's no doubt that the BJP is succeeding.
Right. So given the fact that about 70.79 people have backed the idea of one nation, one poll, so maybe if Modi comes back to power for the third time in 2024, who knows, this idea might become a reality and reality very soon. But let's move on to the next question now. And that's again a very interesting one. Among the opposition leaders, who, according to you, will make a good prime ministerial candidate? Now, Rahul Gandhi, if you look at the table, Rahul Gandhi draws his maximum support from the South, and that is 45.70%. Now, here's the table playing out for you on the screen. So Rahul Gandhi draws his maximum support from the South, that is 45.70%. So the ranking order of Rahul Gandhi's support base, if you look at, is number 1 is South, number 2 is North, number 3 is West, and number 4 is East. That's how it is. Then let's go to the next leader. If you look at the table very carefully, the maximum support for Arvind Kejriwal is from the North, that is 20.31%. Now look at the ranking order. Kejriwal's support base, number 1 comes from the North, number 2 comes from the East, number 3 comes from the West, and number 4 is from the South. So Kejriwal remains very, very popular in the North again. Then let's go to the next leader, that is Mamata Banerjee. The maximum support for Mamata Banerjee is from the East, which is quite obvious, 9.28%. The maximum support for Akhilesh Yadav is from the North, that is again 9.66%. The maximum support for Nitish Kumar is from the East, that is 5.56%. And the maximum support for Sharad Pawar is from the West, which is for obvious reasons at 6.55%. So with this data set, I'll come to Raghuram first. That Raghuram, what does this data set really mean for you? And when you delved into these questions on Rahul Gandhi, on Arvind Kejriwal, Mamata Banerjee, so of course, on the priority of how popular they are, and so who can make the best of the prime minister? So Rahul Gandhi does seem to be the most popular according to the data which is there. But he's restricted to the South. So what does it really say? Yes, Raghuram.
Yeah. For me, the biggest takeaway from this data is the support for Rahul Gandhi. 45% of the 46, nearly 46% of the respondents see him emerging as an alternate prime ministerial candidate. So I would say that the party hasn't capitalized on it as on date. If their vote share is going to be even, if it's going to, from the existing, whatever is Congress's vote share in the last election, even if they're able to draw upon some of Rahul's goodwill the electorate has, I think we'll be discussing a totally different scenario today. And another thing is the backing for Arvind Kejriwal in a national survey. Arvind Kejriwal getting this type of support base is very, very significant, because obviously he's got his support in the north, but east also supports him, and I think there's a lot of potential for him to emerge as a competitor for Rahul Gandhi in the days to come. So this data is very significant for Congress. With the earlier questions, Congress has come nowhere near. There is a potential that Congress can still capitalize on with so much of personal sympathy there for Rahul. I think there's an opportunity, but uh, more importantly, if it's Modi versus Rahul, then that is where the battleground is today. So it may be different. What I'm saying is they had the base. They have the base to build a good campaign on. I think individually the Congress would have been in a much. It's a personal opinion. It would have been in a much stronger position if they had not spent the last few crucial months on putting together an opposition front. If those were spent no, on strengthening the Congress party, and this Nyaya Yatra itself had taken place a few months back, because obviously Bharat Jodo Yatra had done good for the Congress. It came back to power in Telangana. They captured power in Telangana. They came back to power in Karnataka. Andhra, they put together a nice combination which has the potential in the forthcoming election going by data. So there's a lot of good news for Congress in this data.
Right. Of course, there's good news for Congress, especially in the South, where Rahul Gandhi draws the maximum support. But Puneet, the quick question before I go to Srini, sir, that does this data set also indicate that the Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra started, from Kanyakumari last year? I'm talking about the first leg. Uh, shouldn't they have, done that yatra maybe closer towards the Lok Sabha elections? And now that the second leg has started, it started from the east, where his popularity is the least. So maybe the second set should have started from the south. And do you think that that should have been the case as far as the planning of the Bharat Jodo Yatra is concerned, given the popularity of Rahul Gandhi?
No, well, I mean, there can be an equal number of pros and cons listed for either of the two options. There's still a very strong opinion within the party that the second leg of the Bharat Jodo Yatra shouldn't have happened at all. Because you're so close to the elections and you're in the middle of a lot of political upheaval, and you're basically one of your top leaders is on a yatra. So I think, I mean, that's it's pointless getting into how the yatra should have happened, whether it should have been east to west first and north to south later, or any of the other combinations. But the very fact that I mean, for me, what's most important in this data set, aside from the individual names, how they have polled, because their results for me personally are quite a no-brainer, and they're very much on an expected line, is that 27% higher than Rahul's, I believe Rahul is at 24, 27% can't say or don't, identify any potential PM candidate. And that feeds into the whole narrative of this, Modi versus who, that there's nobody against him who can challenge him. So I think that for me is the biggest takeaway in this set. Mamata Banerjee or polling higher, or slightly higher numbers in the east compared to any of the other states, or a Sharad Pawar polling higher numbers in the west compared to the other state clusters. To me, I mean, that's quite a no-brainer. I would have been surprised if it was the other way around. Or even Arvind Kejriwal polling 20% in the north is pretty much for me on expected lines. So I don't read much into that. I do think that the opposition has spectacularly failed in presenting a good face, a good alternative to Modi, and much of the blame for that lies on the Congress. But at the same time, I would apportion a larger chunk of the blame, or rather, I would the success on the BJP's ability to build the Modi versus who narrative, of course, in cahoots with a large section of the media, and build that narrative that there's nobody who can present that alternative. So, despite a whole litany of shortcomings on part of the Prime Minister.
Srini sir, given the fact that Rahul Gandhi draws his maximum support from the South, which is 45.70%, but at the same time, he remains the most popular leader amongst the opposition. That's a given. So are we in a position to say that if anybody can compete Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that is only Rahul? That's very, very evident. So does this data set really reveal that as well?
No, I think what we are looking here is within the opposition, who is the best leader. That's what it comes to be here. Yeah, if you were to say that who against Modi, now here is what the the kind of image created by the propaganda machine of the machinery of the BJP has been overactive for last many years, which is creating a kind of a Pappu image for him. That he can't be there and he can't be a leader. I think that has severely dented his image. But the yatra which he took first in the South, I would say that probably the yatra actually helped in changing his image quite a bit. And many people begin to say that, look, he's after all not such a Pappu as we thought he was, because of the WhatsApp forwards and other such social media's proactiveness. And that's a kind of result you also saw somewhere impacting Karnataka, Telangana, etc. In the case of Northeast, look, the survey was done before he even started the yatra. He started somewhere in January 15th or somewhere later. I think the survey was done almost over by then. That could be one factor. The second is, of course, at least the southern, the first yatra, which was Bharat Jodo Yatra, seemed to have got little publicity, but it got some publicity. Nyaya Yatra, you don't even know what's happening. It's completely, there is as far as media here is concerned, north or center, we suddenly don't seem to see anything happening.
Right.
So we really don't know what is it, how is it going to impact on the ground? We still don't know. But I would agree that when you see somebody as an overarching national leader, end of the day, what is backing Rahul? Also, the Congress party. It's the largest single party in the nation. Whatever its status currently is, that it's in a pretty bad shape. But this is the only party other than BJP. BJP even has some places where it has limited support, especially in South. But it's one party which has been having a wide support all over India. It's just that they're not been able to provide a good leadership and give a good shape to that. So therefore, Congress party still remains a large party. You can't wish away that. However, one may say that they are going to. The Congress party will vanish, whatever such thing be, statements being made. But the fact is, the party is still there as an all India party in many more than 220 constituencies, face to face with BJP. And obviously, their leader should have been given a place, which unfortunately didn't happen because, as I said, of the image which was built around him, and the other regional leaders actually could communicate better, and they could better more political lingo than Rahul. So I also would say that Rahul's communication strategy was also pretty poor earlier, but of late he seemed to have improved. Now he's actually, if you see, he's one leader who is holding more press conferences, he's meeting more people, and he's in your face more than any other leader, almost on a daily basis. But of course, he's not getting the kind of coverage or any such thing. Therefore, I feel the outcome is interesting, and in the South, especially the Gandhi family especially in Tamil Nadu, in other Karnataka, you have seen in the past also, when the North had completely rejected Indira, it was South where she came and conquered once again. So there is some kind of a sympathy here in any case, and Bharat Jodo certainly worked. As far as North is concerned, I already explained the reasons.
Right. So interesting finding there, but let's move on to the last question of the day, which we are putting out for you viewers. And just a little reminder, this is an all India pre-poll survey, which the Federal, its sister concern, Puthiyathalaimurai and Apt Research Group have conducted. So we're coming to the last question of the day. Who are your top 3 all-time favorite prime ministers of India? So of course, the top 3 names, Narendra Modi tops the chart, with 61.76% of the people voting for him. Then Atal Bihari Vajpayee, 48.15%. Then Indira Gandhi, 42.41%. And if you look at other prime ministers, Dr. Manmohan Singh comes on the 4th position with 35.63%. Jawaharlal Nehru comes on number 5th, that is 34.24%. Rajiv Gandhi, 26.08%. Narasimha Rao, 11.93%. And VP Singh, 9.39%. So undoubtedly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi remains the most popular figure. Okay, so what is the biggest takeaway, according to you, Raghuram, from this data set?
The biggest takeaway is Prime Minister Modi with 62% support is at the top spot, followed by Mr. Vajpayee with around 48% support at the second spot, and Mrs. Gandhi at the third spot with around 43% of the support. So this is the biggest takeaway. They are, according to this poll, they are the top 3 favorite prime ministers, current and former prime ministers of India.
Right. All right. So, Srini sir, I'll come to you now. What I'm interested in knowing is that Jawaharlal Nehru, BJP indulges in so much of Nehru bashing all the time. And if you look at the popularity of Jawaharlal Nehru, it is way under Dr. Manmohan Singh, below, in fact, Dr. Manmohan Singh. He comes on number 5th position. Whereas people do say, and the history books say, that India almost has never had a prime minister like Jawaharlal Nehru. So this figure is really intriguing. Of course, Narendra Modi remains the most popular figure, but Jawaharlal Nehru, who people call a statesman, the most vibrant prime minister, he comes on number 5th, 34.24%.
Yeah, so it clearly shows that despite all this heavy bashing of Nehru day in and day out, he still remains one of the most popular PM. In fact, he occupies, of course, he occupies place only after Modi, Vajpayee, Indira Gandhi, and he occupies the 4th place. Rather 5th place, even after Manmohan Singh. But the very fact that he still gets 34% vote and is especially interesting. And if you look at the table again, the Nehru family, if you look both Indira and Jawaharlal Nehru, they got more support. Even Rajiv Gandhi from the south, because of the Gandhi family kind of sentiments there. That's one thing. But then the other interesting issues here is each PM had his own imprint. They had some of the other thing which is important. If he'll go down in history and written in records, Narasimha Rao, as one of the reformist PM, gets about 12%, and VP Singh, who brought social justice north, only 10%. Yeah. And Dr. Manmohan Singh, one must say that economic reform, which he ushered in during his 1991 regime, changes which he brought in 1991, seem to have, people still seem to be remembering it. That's what 35%, and he was considered the best, prime minister as far as economic reforms are concerned. I think people seem to be acknowledging that. And Narasimha Rao, who actually helmed it, and that's the time when Manmohan Singh was the finance minister and PM was Narasimha Rao. But Narasimha Rao gets only 12%, and it seems that the economic legacy goes more with Manmohan Singh during his. Though the other important factor is 123 nuclear deal, which he signed with US, and this is really a very strategic one. And this was one particular decision in which he put his foot down, and that was the only major decision in which he was not swaying to any pressures, if one may say so. And this is a kind of a strategic opening for India, where we could get nuclear fuel and be equal to other nuclear powered nations. So it was one of the biggest move from Manmohan Singh. But I don't think it got so much publicity. It got so much of thing as his track record as economic reforms. But of course, in the end, Narendra Modi, no question.
Yes. But Puneet, something is very interesting. Now, if you look at the track record of, the percentage of people who have polled. Now, there was no social media in times of VP saying Narasimha Rao up to Atal Bihari Vajpayee, in fact. Up to the era of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, there was actually no social media. So this Narendra Modi phenomena, is it a manufactured phenomena? Of course, he has his own positives and which he has contributed. But a lot of it also has been contributed by the social media. So is it a social media amplified image of Narendra Modi, which helps him to remain the most popular prime minister when a comparison is done with other prime ministers?
It's interesting that you use this use this term, Neelu, because a couple of days back, a short while back, I met a RSS ideologue, a former RSS ideologue, and someone who at one point in time held great sway on the BJP and the Sangh, who used exactly the same phrase, that a lot of Modi's popularity is manufactured popularity, all thanks to the kind of tools that are available today to create that kind of an image. But then there is certainly no denying that whether it's manufactured, whether it's genuine, popularity at the end of the day is popularity. I mean, if he's polling 62%, close to 62%, one needs to acknowledge it. But then I would also, there are a couple of other takeaways personally for me. One, as Srini was just saying, I would think, or I would like to believe that, for a prime minister like Pandit Nehru, or even Dr. Manmohan Singh, and to a marginally lesser degree than these two, Rajiv Gandhi, for these three, despite the kind of absolutely vicious and vile allegations, abuses, and that's hurled at them day in and day out, particularly Pandit Nehru, if they are still polling 34, 35, 26%, it shows that, there aren't people falling hook, line, and sinker for that kind of acerbic, insults that are hurled at these people. With Pandit Nehru, additionally so, because, I'm quite sure, and even, at the risk of being too presumptuous, that by the sheer logic of demographic volume, the percentage of respondents in this survey who would have actually seen Pandit Nehru at work or would have been in close proximity to the period in which Pandit Nehru was prime minister would be very, very less compared to those who are seeing, Modi in action, or who've seen Dr. Manmohan Singh's time or Mr. Vajpayee's time. So there's also that thing to be factored in, because we do have a very poor sense of history, and I think a large part of the BJP's success today and the Congress's failure is that the Congress constantly tries to remind the people of the independence struggle, of what's happened in 1940, what happened in 1947, or between 1947 and 1970 or 1964. Whereas the BJP focuses on now, while abusing the past, of course, and so there is a kind of revision, a kind of a revisionist view of that history that the Congress is trying to still stick to and talk about, without actually giving an alternative narrative of the future, or even the present, for that matter. So, if despite all of those factors, a Pandit Nehru polls close to 35%, I think it's a big deal. Mrs. Gandhi, I would say, it's an interesting point that she scores 42.41, just below Mr. Modi and Mr. Vajpayee. And that's not a poor, a bad figure, 42.4 or 43% roughly. But to some extent, I would say that barring the period of the emergency, she, unlike Pandit Nehru, is not made out to be that huge a villain for the country by the BJP. The BJP rarely attacks Mrs. Gandhi on anything else other than the emergency. And in fact, you see great similarities in her way of functioning during the emergency, or what led her to the emergency, and the functioning style of the current prime minister. So we have a tendency to, and I mean, I have no qualms in saying this, although it may be an unpopular opinion, but we do tend to like muscular leaders, as an electorate. We prefer muscular leaders. We prefer leaders with authoritarian tendencies, and that to me gives Mrs. Gandhi this higher position in this list compared to even someone like Pandit Nehru.
Right. So one quick question again, Puneet, to you, that so does it mean that for BJP, this data set would be very interesting for all those people within BJP who think that who after Modi, Gadkari, Yogi Adityanath, all sorts of names which are floating around. So BJP has to sit pretty that there is no one other than Modi then.
Well, perhaps somebody in the BJP should commission a survey with alternatives within the BJP.
Yeah, that's right. But
You
will they
know, and then be chucked out of the party.
Srini sir, will BJP ever conduct a survey like this?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah.
All right. So very interesting data set coming in here. But our pre-poll survey will continue over the next few days, where we will be bringing out interesting aspects on this pre-poll conducted by the Federal, Puthiyathalaimurai, and Apt Research Group. Thank you so much, Raghuram, Srini sir, and Puneet for joining. And stay tuned to the Federal and subscribe to our videos. Thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.